Hello, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats for today. It's April 11th, 2024. This is probably the fourth time we've given this presentation, and it's being recorded. It's being placed on YouTube. So hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Welcome today, and everybody who's live. This is an IC Topic Chat that's a core topic. We have core topics every month, and there are topics that are repeated every year. That's why I said I've done this for four times. We started back in 2020. And we've been going for 4 years. This is maybe the number one topic that people always want to talk about, the core topic. Because it's about setting your fees, about what is your billing rate? How do you identify that billing rate? And in fact, I had to upgrade my little GIF because I got tired of looking at the old one, and plus it was kind of inaccurate anymore. So I had to put in a little Yoda because next month is May. It is May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and I have my dog Max with me today. He was born on May the 4th, so he's my Star Wars dog. So it just made sense to put something in there about Star Wars. But again, we're talking about how you identify your calculation of your fees. So when we're starting out, okay, doesn't want to do it. We often feel like, I don't know, what am I supposed to be charging? I'll just charge what everybody else is charging. $25 an hour, that sounds good, right? Well, hopefully you're not charging that amount because it's probably not enough. And then we kind of get to the point where like, I just don't know what I'm doing. However, when you feel like telling this to your clients, just show me the money. But I think oftentimes our friends and our clients think this is what our experience is like, where we just kind of have money flowing right out of the ATM machine for us. What I want to talk today to you about is why you should think about your fees. Effectively, we need integrity when we're asking for a contract. We got notice of an award from one of our clients yesterday, and it made me think back. And one of the first things I do is I go back and say, okay, how much should we ask for in the pre-proposal process? And it's a sticky situation because how do you ask for an amount? And then when you at a certain point, we used to ask for a much lower amount, and now we're asking for a larger amount. And how do I go about making that conversation? And that's what this is about. This is about the integrity of about what you're asking for when you get to that contract phase. So for me, I'm always expecting pushback. I frequently get pushback, and people want to know, why are you asking for such and such an amount? Well, I need to be able to explain that. And that's what this conversation is today. You're on the other end, your client needs to feel comfortable saying, yeah, I think that makes sense. I can understand and appreciate where that comes from. I mean, I've had several different situations where I have some clients who come in and they think they should be paying me about half the amount that I think I need. And I know I need because I've had to figure this out. I have staff, we have overhead expenses. And if we don't ask for enough, we're in real trouble. We're either in trouble because I'm asking my staff to work too hard, or we're in trouble because we're just not going to be able to make our payroll or pay for our expenses. On the other end, I have clients who come in and say, I'd like to give you this X amount, and it's quite a bit. And so we have to find a way to make that make sense. But we need fair compensation for our work. We need to be able to justify our expenses, and we need to be able to know that when we set out down this path, we will have enough to pay for our expenses a year, 2 years. Most of my programs, by the way, are 3 to 5 years. Plus, you need to stay in business, maintain your independence, and build your reputation. And for you guys to figure this out how to do this today, super important actually to me, because if you stay successful, if you build your brand, you build your business, and you are independent, that, as I was saying before I started the recording today to the rest of the folks, you're kind of building that infrastructure of independent consultants that hold us all up. And if we have a bunch of, if all of us, there's a large community of independent consultants out there doing program evaluation that have high integrity, that can talk about their fees, then there will be an expectation that on the part of our clients that we are a good group of folks, because there are some poor reputations and there's some people out there doing some poor things. And I'm hoping to change that in whatever way I can. All right, So this is one scenario I want you to avoid. Client asks you for a price. How much is this evaluation going to cost? And you say, what's the value of the grant? It will cost you 10%. Now, I know a lot of people use this 10% rule. And I'm not even saying it's a bad idea to consider that, but you can't just say, I take 10% without any other justification. So let's avoid that. Sometimes it's written into, in fact, I have some projects where it's written directly into the request for proposals. You can give up to 5% to your evaluator. You still need to know what that 5% consists of. If you say it's going to be 10%, you need to say, I often work from 10%, but I use real calculations for my fees. I have an hourly rate, which is the rate we're going to talk about today. My hourly rate is whatever it is, times the number of hours that I intend to work on this. That's your cost. Is that 10%? Fine. Is it 5%? Fine. If you're using a 5% or 10% kind of guidepost, that's fine. But if you say it's going to cost you 10%, no other explanation, which I know happens a lot, I have every reason to believe that your client should call BS on that. All right. On the other end of things, you have a value. And this is the value that you need to convey to your client. And this is the scenario of the carpenter. You have the squeaky stair and you call the carpenter and the carpenter comes in. He looks at the stair, he presses on it a couple times, he pulls out a nail, he hits the nail into the stair and the stair is no longer squeaky. You say, well, oh, that's great. You just showed up here. How much is that going to cost? He says it costs 25 cents for the nail and $60 for knowing where to place the nail. You have expertise. You are a valuable commodity. And I think your clients understand that. Oftentimes they need an external third-party evaluator who has experience in social sciences, who knows how to do research, who knows how to write reports, who knows how to create data visualizations, et cetera, et cetera. That is your value. So that you should be able to demand a valuable amount. But you also need to know why you're worth that value and where that comes from. So we're basically today talking about these two types of fee arrangements. We're talking about an hourly or a daily rate, which is sometimes called our per diem, and a fixed fee. So to get to a fixed fee, if I'm going to charge $20,000 a year, I'm going to say that'll be $20,000 a year because I have a daily rate times the number of hours we estimate we're going to work. And so those are the types of things we're talking about today. Retainers are where somebody pays you a flat amount for you to be available to them. We're not really going to talk about that. And value-based billing, fixed fees are in effect value-based billing, but that's effectively you charge what the value is to your client, regardless of what the hourly rate is. They see the value of what you're doing, but we're not going to do that. We're just focusing on hourly and daily rates, really. And then we're not going to get into how you create the fixed fee, but this would be the hourly or daily rate is usually how I create my fixed fee. It's really only 3 steps. I'm going to show this to you in the Excel spreadsheet I'm going to pull up in just a second. You identify the number of days that you're available to work on client work. You identify your expenses, your costs, which is your compensation plus your overhead, and you divide the two. You divide the cost by the billable days. That's it. And then you get a daily billable rate. You can divide that by 8 and that'll be your hourly rate. All right, let's go to the fee calculation spreadsheet. And I'm going to put this in the chat for everybody, and we will also send this out. I'm going to put this right here in the chat. There you go. All right. Can you guys confirm that you can see the fee calculation worksheet? Good. Thanks, Noah. All right. So before we get into those sorts of things, for any of you who are just getting started, I've got a couple things. I'm going to take this ribbon off, make this a little bit bigger for everybody. This is handout number 4 normally for our workshop that Laura Keene and I do. We usually do this at the that's the ribbon. Do this as a pre-conference workshop for the annual conference. This year will be in Portland in November. No, October. It's October this year. No, November. I can't remember when it is. It's in October. It's in October. Uh, they seem to move it back and forth. Anyway, at the AEA conference. And we'll also be doing it at the Summer Evaluation Institute. We know we're doing it at the Summer Evaluation Institute again this year, if you're going to be there in Washington, D.C., the last week of June. Anyway, so I'll go through this again then too, and you'd have more time to talk to me. The startup costs, this isn't part of your hourly rate, but this is just something for you to think about. This is here for you to just, what does it cost me to start up my business? And these are things like website design, bank account startup, accounting fees, legal fees. If you're going to, create a corporation or something like that, you need a lawyer to help you out. Not going to be relevant for the rest of the conversation, but this is here for you. Annual overhead expenses. This is relevant. And this is where you'd put all those things that will cost you money that doesn't, that costs you just to do your business. There's insurance, there's accounting and finances, any license renewals, legal fees, costs for travel to support your professional development or your business development that's not covered in other places, marketing, meals and entertainment. Anyway, so there's a series of different costs. This is probably going to be 20% of your, I'm just guessing, from once you get into it, when your business, build your business out a little bit more, it'll be more, but probably 20% of all your costs, at least, just a guesstimate. This is the thing that a lot of people struggle with. And these are all these yellow pieces are things where you can place numbers and it'll all calculate for you. How many weeks do we have in a year? It's pretty simple, 52 weeks. 52 times 5 is 260. So you have 260 days that you can work during the year. Now this is an example. You are probably going to work more or less than this, but this is just for the purposes of a calculation. Before we determine, you're not going to work 52 weeks a year. Please don't work 52 weeks a year. You might work 52 weeks a year if you just get busy. A lot of us do. I suggest you don't. I suggest you take some time for vacation, public or statutory holidays, and sick time. These are weeks. So each of these weeks times 5 is the days. So this is the time you will not be working during the year, right? You may not take 4 weeks of vacation, but you need to estimate that for your calculations. So what we're trying to do is get to this days available to do work. That's really what we're trying to get to. So I'm going to estimate that about 7 weeks out of the year, you are not going to be working. Now, you will be working, but you will not be on client work for a number of weeks of the year as well. And these are just suggested numbers. How do you come up with these suggested numbers? Well, we've been using these numbers for a while and they seem to make sense. But ultimately, you should track your time. We've got a whole session on tracking your time. And so you should know how much time you've spent on administration, professional development, and marketing. So administration is that time of setting up contracts before you can put time towards it. Professional development as well, what you're doing right now. Hopefully you'll go to the AEA conference as well. You'll do other things. If you're smart, you're also getting involved with your local affiliate. You're getting involved with other types of associations like perhaps Grant Professionals Association. I think that's a good one. I just got a notice that there's an NSF meeting, a National Science Foundation meeting in Chicago. And so we have 6 or 7 projects within that division. And it would make sense for us to go there for the purposes of marketing. So that would be marketing and professional development, but that's probably marketing because we would get a chance to connect with our clients. So that's client work, but also have a chance to perhaps speak and talk to other people who might be our future clients. So we start with 52 weeks, we take out 7, we're at 45 weeks to do our work. We take out another 12 weeks to do all the things that you have to do to run your business that don't bill your clients. That leaves you with 33 weeks. 33 times 5, 165. That puts you at a billable percentage of 73%. That's 165 divided by 225. That doesn't count all your time not working. It's just the time on the job. 225 days a year, 165 focused on your clients. Now, what you're going to see, you probably, if you've already opened up the spreadsheet that I put in the chat, you'll see these yellow things. It's where you actually put stuff in. So this is the example on the right-hand side in the worksheet that you can put in, throw the number, put some numbers in there, play around with it, and you'll see where you end up. Now, you have already put in things in the yellow here for your overhead expenses. I don't know what those things are and what you think they're going to be, but we did put in some estimates in the fee calculation. So I'm going to show you the example and then you can play with it. We'll play with it, the yellow, in just a second. We determined on the last sheet that we have 165 billable days because we've got to do the other things. I threw in the number of $28,000 for overhead. Some people might be like, holy cow, $28,000, until you've been doing this for a couple of years and you go, wow, you can do that for $28,000. Yeah, the numbers are all over the place. It's going to be more expensive in some places. It's going to be less expensive in others. If you have an office that you're leasing, that's $2,000 a month. That's $24,000. If it's $500 a month, you get the idea. That's $6,000. And we have a whole nother session on where to work. Anyhow, your overhead is those expenses. I know our overhead's quite a bit per person. A lot more. I think it's probably, I don't know if it's 28,000. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. Anyway, so you identify a desired salary. How do you come up with that? It's the way I look at it is I look at the STEM director at one of the universities nearby, and I look at what she or he is making, and that's like for a STEM center. So they're running a university center, which to me is very effectively like what I do here at Goshen Consulting. What's their salary? So I put that in. I just looked it up today, and it's 134, about 134,000. That's what this person made in 2021, according to public records. Anyway, you can put in whatever number you want to there. Over annual overhead costs, you can see this is a formula. It's pointing back here. If it was 35, put that in there, but we have 28,000 was the original number we came up with. You can see the total annual costs of 162,000, right? You divide 162,000 by 165. The calculations are kind of updating here in the side. That's not a base rate of $982. I believe you need to put in a buffer, and that some people have called this profit. And you should certainly have profit. I think you need a buffer, and I call it buffer because frankly, how many people have ever overworked a project, right? You need to give yourself a buffer. Maybe it's 10%. 10% suggested. You could give yourself 15%, but ultimately you need some way of saying, I'm gonna probably overwork some of this. I'm gonna make mistakes. I need to figure this out. Anyway, so 10% of that is $98. So then you've got a final daily rate of $1,080, and divided that by 8, that's $135. I mean, I just talked a whole bunch and gave you lots of examples, but this is really simple. How many days of the year can you work on client work after you take care of all that other stuff like administration and holidays and sick time and whatever? How many days can you do that? What are your costs? Your costs are your salary plus your overhead. Divide it, add a little buffer. That's your daily rate. Divide that by 8. That's your hourly rate. Anyway, so I dropped this in there. You can put in what you want to. So let's just say it's 140, and your overhead is. Don't take these numbers. I'm just making these numbers up. You try and do these calculations on your own, please. I'm going to put in a 10% buffer. I told you my local STEM director at a university is making 134,000, and so this is one way to come up with the calculation of $166 an hour. Maybe my billable days, maybe I was being kind of stingy in my billable days. Maybe I can actually do 160. Now my hourly rate's 145. this is a way for you to have that conversation with yourself and think through what is the correct rate. Now, this is where I perhaps get myself in trouble. We're going to go back to the presentation. This is my little duck talking to me. Okay, that's great. But what do I really charge? Okay, let me also start by saying whatever I tell you right now could be considered price fixing. Price fixing is described here by the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm not telling you what to charge, okay? And you shouldn't take what I say as evidence of what you should charge. What you should do is go back and do what I told you to do, is use the fee calculation spreadsheet. Come up with these calculations on your own. But I'm going to share with you what we found through the surveys that people do charge. Over the years, when the survey was first done in 1992, by, I think, Melanie Wallach. I just reached out to Melanie yesterday and said, can you come on to the IC topic chats? You've been around forever. I would love to get to just pick your brain. She did that in 1992. I think she was the TIG chair back then. The median or average, I think they might have done average then, billing rate was $64. In 2003, it was 100. In 2015, it was still 100, 12 years later. And then when we recently did the survey, when the TIG did the survey, and they shared that information with me, it was $150. Now, you should look at this from an inflationary perspective. You can see in many ways, by still charging $100 in 2015, we had undercut ourselves. The reported median rate in 2022 is $150 per hour. And I will say, if I ever need to get to the point of a conversation with a client on why are you billing what you're billing, I will share this with them, and I'll say, I did my own calculations. This is how I did it, right? But I will say, this is what the median rate is. Now, there's a lot of numbers here, so I'm just going to isolate what you need to see here. Based upon the number of years you've been doing this is reported to us from you guys, actually. The median rate continues to be about $150 an hour. I don't know what happens to, I'm in this 15 to 19 years of experience now. I don't know what's going on here. We all decided to take a price cut. We probably think we should be charging $100 an hour still, and so we haven't gotten the memo, and that's what happened there. I'm not really sure. But anyway, you can see across the board, when people first get started, their billing rate's a little bit lower. We expect that. But then it quickly goes up to this 150 for whatever reason. And you can see the different years of experience. So kind of 5.5 last ideas. You need to know the rate, know your rate. So you have it for the purposes of scoping out your projects. When somebody says, when you determine it's going to be 100 hours over the year to do this thing, and your price is $150 an hour, that's $15,000. So you should be asking for $15,000 from your client in that situation. You should be calculating your rate on a regular basis. Obviously, the 15 to 19 people who are still probably charging $100 an hour because they didn't get the memo, they haven't been calculating their rate. You need to update your rates. A lot of us have experienced a lot of inflation, and it's caused us a lot of issues. I have not gone back to my clients from 5 years ago and said, you should be paying me more, but I've had that thought on a regular basis because in many ways our rates are higher, and we've kept those contracts the same, but it's painful. Consider your value in relation to your client's program, meaning like if somebody has a $100,000, let me use a bigger number, a $10 million program, and they want to charge you, you only ask them for $10,000. The reality is you probably should be doing more work if they have a $10 million project. So you can see your value in relation to them after you've done all the other work of scoping out what it takes to do your project and what your rate really is based upon what your expenses are. Okay. You should use those resources. And I say our because that was a product of first Gail Barrington's work that she took as a reference from another book. some work that I initially did in this Excel spreadsheet, and then Laura Keene did a lot of work to make it even prettier because she's good at that. It's okay to reference these TIG surveys, but make sure you're doing the work. Make sure you're calculating your own costs and you're not just saying, well, that's what Matt told me, or that's what I heard other people are doing. You have to do the work to be able to support this because somebody has the right to ask how you calculated your rates. You want to do some additional reading, read Gail Barrington's book. She goes into greater detail on this. Patricia Steele, we see her from time to time. She owns Higher Ed Insights. She's a good colleague of mine, of ours. I always like talking with her because she's got such great experiences. She also goes into pricing. All right, thank you for that. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll go into the chat part of this. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff popping up in the chat. I see it rolling. I don't have any idea what any of that said, so somebody might have to catch me up. All right, see you later, YouTube people.